In this video, we're going to study Aesop's fable of the hawk and the nightingale. The hawk and the nightingale. Let's read the fable together, and then we'll talk about its characters and moral, and see if we can make some helpful applications to our lives as Christians. The hawk and the nightingale. A nightingale once fell into the clutches of a hungry hawk who had been all day on the lookout for food. "Pray let me go," said the nightingale. "I am such a mite, such a small thing. I am such a small thing for a stomach like yours. I sing so nicely too. Do let me go. It will do you good to hear me." "Much good it will do to an empty belly," replied the hawk. "And besides, a little bird that I have is more to me than a great one that has yet to be caught." This is the fable of the hawk and the nightingale. As I've said in past videos on Aesop's fables, we have to always make sure that we pay attention to the details, because one of the characteristics of a wise writer is that a wise writer adds nothing that is not necessary to his purpose, nor does he leave anything out that's necessary. And so if Aesop chooses, or any wise writer chooses, to add some detail, he adds it intentionally. If it wasn't important, he would leave it out. That's the mark of a good writer. So first we look at the characters in this fable. We see there are two characters, a nightingale and a hawk, and we can tell by the fable itself what the characteristics are of these two different birds. A nightingale is a small bird, a beautiful bird that's known for its singing. That's a nightingale, a small songbird. The hawk is a large predator, a hunter, who's constantly seeking for prey. He spends the whole day on the lookout for food, and I don't know if you live in an area where there are hawks, but there are many hawks where we live out here in the country. And the hawks will fly high overhead, and they have amazing vision. They can see even mice moving around in fields. And they'll be high up in the sky, and if they see prey down on the ground, they'll quickly swoop down out of the sky and grab it off the ground and take it away for their meal. They'll even attack farm animals like chickens or baby animals like a baby goat or a baby lamb. A large hawk will take a chance at a larger animal. We've had hawks fly right into our chicken coop and attack chickens while we were standing there in the garden. They're brave, and when they get hungry, they get especially courageous. And so the hawk is always seeking its food. It's a large bird. It has to eat a lot. It can't live on bird feeder, seed, and things like that as small birds do. It needs larger prey. It's a meat eater. And so this hawk is on the lookout for food all day. He's obviously hungry, and he's unsuccessful, so he's got no food for the day. And all of a sudden he gets a hold of this nightingale, and the nightingale says, "I'm not a bird that's worth eating. I'm a songbird. I'm small. I'm not going to provide you with any satisfaction if you eat me, and besides, what I'm useful for is singing. I'm beautiful. I make beautiful music. So please let me go. I'm not going to satisfy you, and you may find pleasure in just listening to me sing." But the hawk says, "I don't think so. I'm hungry, and you're all I've got, and so I'm going to eat you." And we can assume from the fable that the hawk goes ahead and does eat this nightingale. Why would Why would Aesop choose these characters? Well, because the nightingale really isn't a bird worth eating, and the hawk is a large, hungry predator. So Aesop chooses these two characters, the hawk and the nightingale, to teach us a moral lesson. There are actually many moral lessons that can be drawn from this fable. It's a very good fable to meditate on, because it's one of those where the more we meditate on it, the more lessons we can draw from it. It becomes very useful to us. First of all, let's consider what this fable teaches us about the value of things. The value of things. If you think of your life, you may be fairly wealthy compared to other people in the world. In some places they have no food, no water, no clothing, no housing. Even to find clean water would be a cause of celebration in some communities, whereas you may never even drink water because there's always juice or milk or other drinks in the house, and you would never think of thanking God for water in a day because you take it for granted. But in a place where people are hungry, different things are valued. And in this fable, for example, a hungry hawk is not going to be interested in beautiful music when he has no food. A hungry hawk will not be interested in music when he has no food. And this teaches us an important lesson about the arts as well. If we look back through history and find times when the arts flourished, music and painting and sculpture and architecture, we'll find that they flourished during times of wealth and peace, when people have their needs provided for and they're able to live in comfort. That's when they turn their attention to fine arts. We'll see the great painters. The great painters can't paint if there aren't wealthy people willing to pay them for their works. The great sculptors are not able to obtain expensive materials like marble or granite to work with and sculpt images if there aren't wealthy people able to provide them with the money that's needed for the materials and also for the time for the work to be done. Great buildings can't be built when there's not peace. Think about the world wars when the Germans were bombing England and other countries, and when the English were bombing the Germans. That's not a time to start talking about architecture and construction when people are hoping just to survive. They're looking for bread. They're not talking about statues and paintings or music. And so the arts depend on prosperity and peace, and we'll see all through history that when the arts thrive, peace was established first and prosperity, and that provided the environment for the arts. A hungry hawk has no need of a nightingale. So that's another lesson that we can draw from this fable, which this fable provides us with a good illustration for. You in your life, if you're a young child studying the fables, one of the reasons why you get in trouble is because you seek to play and fool around, and you're always trying to find games, and you're looking for shows to watch, and the reason why is because your parents likely provide for everything you need and you don't even think about it. One of the reasons why children struggle to pray is because they're not thankful for things, because they take them for granted, because their parents provide for them, because God provides generously for them through their parents. And often we're not thankful until we lose something. There's a saying, you never really know what you have until it's gone. And so you may struggle as a child to pray and to be thankful for things that are important because you're so well provided for. You're not like the hawk. You're not hungry. You're not looking for simple things. You're not thankful for your food and clothing, or a warm, dry house in the winter, or a cool place to sleep in the summertime. You're thinking about toys and games, and you may get in trouble for that. And there's a reason. It's not unreasonable why children get in trouble for things. But as you get older, you're going to go through times in life where you become like this hawk. You're going to go through times where you can't take food for granted, or you can't take a place to live for granted. And during those times, you learn to become more grateful. You become more conscious and aware of your dependence on God's providence. You learn to pray more. You learn to trust in God and do many of the things that your parents are asking you to do, which are hard to do when you're a child because you just don't feel the pains of the difficulties of life. The hawk, being hungry, is a symbol of one who needs the basic things of life. He's not interested in the music of the nightingale. He's looking for food, and he's content with whatever he can get. He says, "A little bird that I have is more to me than a great one that has yet to be caught." So we can think of other moral lessons like beggars can't be choosers. That applies to this fable. We can think a bird in hand is worth two in the bush. That applies to this fable. So, as I said, this fable of the hawk and the nightingale is a very helpful fable that provides us with many moral meditations, can be applied in life in many ways. And remember, the purpose of studying these fables is not just to learn the stories, but to think about them, to meditate on them. And as we go through life, to understand how they can give us direction and help, to help us understand things in our life, to help us to avoid mistakes. So don't only study the fables, and don't think that when you can tell the characters and events of a fable that you've finished with it. Realize that that's just the beginning. I hope that's helpful. This was a video on Aesop's fable of the hawk and the nightingale. God bless your studies.